Hi guys, this is Lala Legacy, and welcome back to another episode of SeaBed. So, we are going to try and look at the tips this time, just real quick. I don't know how fast it's gonna go, but we can try, and yeah, because I was asked to look at the tips. So let's do it! Narasaki's Clinic, room 008. Pale light filled the early morning corridor, its stale, humid air tickling my nose. I shook my still somewhat drowsy head and continued with my daily routine, inspecting the room equipment. Today was room 008's turn. Not breaking my stride, I pulled out a bunch of keys from my pocket and began to look for the one marked with the number 8. There must have been about 50 keys on that bunch, and with the notebook under my armpit, it took quite a while until I found the key I was looking for. That said, I still managed to have it ready by the time I reached the door with the number 8. As I opened it, the door on the other side sucked much of the fresh air inside, almost like it was breathing. I quickly entered and went on with my business, making sure that all the furniture and equipment in this murky, dust-riddled room was still in the right place. The table and the sofa were covered with white sheets, making them look like ghosts. A cardboard box rested next to the sofa. It had been over 10 years since this place turned into a storage room. It had actually been half a year since I last came here. After glancing over the furniture, I moved on to the shelves by the wall. One of the shelves was filled with dishware, while the other boasted a whole collection of thick hardcover books. On the dishware shelf, there were a bunch of white plates stacked upon each other, alongside a few cups and saucers further down. I spotted a case wrapped in a piece of cloth with checkered design. In it, there were forks, spoons, and knives. My gaze halted on one particular dish in the back of the shelf that stood out from the rest. The previous owner of the room made it in elementary school, back when she was a member of a pottery club. Whoops, I cannot read right now. It was about palm size and shaped like a tulip, colored in reddish brown like rusted iron. She received some help from the club supervisor, a professional potter, but aside from the color, she was relatively satisfied with how it turned out. I considered the dishes one more time, feeling as though I had missed something. She made 3 dishes in total over the time she spent at the pottery club during her 6th year of elementary school. One she presented to her grandfather, but the other 2 she kept on the shelf. However, the green dish that was supposed to be next to the reddish-brown one wasn't there. I opened my notebook. It had everything about this room marked down in detail. I turned the page to find that there was indeed supposed to be a green cup here. There were no notes of it being removed. It seemed as though it had simply disappeared by itself. I crossed it out and wrote down today's date slightly above it. Since I found one article missing, I decided to check every single item inside. It was nowhere near as easy as it initially sounded. After I finished, I found out that 2 books were also missing from the shelf. I crossed them out too and wrote today's date above them. With that done, I left the murky room and locked the door behind me. I glanced at the clock to realize the whole ordeal took me over an hour. Returning the keys to the night duty room, I continued with my other duties. Oh, that's pretty. Watercolors. Oh, okay, so these are short. Oh, awesome. Okay, so next is room 208, I think. Yeah. After finishing a light meal in the cafeteria, I returned to the kitchen and prepared a small dish for one. I used the same boiled vegetables I ate for my own dish and had already prepared the previous day. All I had to do was warm them up. I picked up the tray and placed the vegetable plate and rice bowl on, then left the kitchen. From the lobby, I ascended the stairs to the second floor. I knocked on the door to the room at the end of the corridor, the one marked with the number 208. As Sachiko ate, I sat down in the cane chair and once again looked over the list of things that had disappeared from the mansion. What is it you're always checking over there? Looking up, I noticed that Sachiko had already finished her meal. I'm making a note of all the things that disappeared from this mansion. Disappeared? Has there been a burglary or something? No, nothing has been stolen. The things here just tend to disappear and reappear in other places, that's all. And how exactly do they disappear? I don't know. I've never witnessed the actual moment when they disappear. By the time I take notice, they're already gone. You mean you've never actually witnessed it? I nodded. Could it be that you can't even notice things if they vanish and reappear right in front of your eyes? That'd be odd. There's nothing odd about it. It's just how the world works. Then why are you so concerned about it? Everything here happens for a reason, and I want to know that reason. Besides, if possible, I'd rather not forget what used to be here. Oh, whoops. I did the wrong voices, but that's okay. Sachiko glanced out the window. It was black as night, and you couldn't see anything, but the light from outside still illuminated the room to a certain extent. Sachiko came to this clinic 3 days ago without warning. It had been a long while since she last visited, so it surprised me. I led her into to the reception room and listened to what she had to say. She seemed tired and somewhat pale. When I asked her about it, she said her job had been pretty hectic lately. When I asked why, she told me Takako had passed away due to an illness. Apparently, Sachiko took over her workload in their office, on top of looking after her when she ended up bedridden. She told me she wanted some rest, so I lent her one of my rooms. When I glanced back at her, she was still looking at the window. Sachiko wouldn't leave the room the next day either. There were a few things missing in the room I checked that day too. It was a bit strange to have things disappear in such quick succession, but I was particularly interested in what that missing thing was. I returned to my room, still none the wiser about the whole situation. As I reached my desk, I opened the list, and after looking up proper nouns, left a little note for myself. Sometime after noon, I felt hungry and made my way to the kitchen. I'd already had lunch, so I checked the refrigerator for something light. The massive silver fridge had 9 drawers. I pulled out a sizable pear from the bottom one and sliced it up to pieces with a kitchen knife. I left the room with a tray of freshly made tea and a plate of pear slices. I looked outside the window as I ascended the stairs. The inner yard was surrounded by walls from every angle. Even the sky, dark and filled with clouds, looked rectangular. Sachiko was reading a book in her room, as usual. You shouldn't forget to exercise. You'll get sick if all you do is read. I placed the plate with pear slices on the side table. Sachiko glanced at the plate and thanked me, but instead of eating anything, returned her full attention to the book. I sat down in the cane chair with my own plate and began reading the novel I'd brought with myself. After a while, I began hearing crunching sounds from Sachiko's direction, which made me look up from my book. She was looking at the window. That window was always dark. You could never see anything beyond it. Sachiko mentioned that it was odd, but kept looking at it all the time. She also said how it was odd that things kept disappearing. In this clinic, however, things kept disappearing and reappearing without warning. The ones that appeared tend to be daily necessities that you can never forget. For example, the fridge I looked at just earlier would fill up without my knowledge. Sachiko would probably say that was odd too. I'm going to look at the flower beds in the inner yard. Want to come with me? I finished the last slice of my pear and looked at Sachiko. It's been raining a lot, so I want to check up on the flowers. I feel like it would do you some good to go outside for a bit instead of staying in bed all day and night. You may be right. I brought our plates to the kitchen while Sachiko got changed. After I returned to her room and picked her up, we continued to the inner yard to look at the flower beds. The inner yard was between the four wings of this building. The weather seemed to have taken a turn for the better by the time we finally went outside. We could see spots of blue sky amid the clouds. Oh, that's pretty! Ah! As soon as we stepped outside, we were welcomed by Cosmo flowers. They were swaying left and right in the fierce wind. At first look, it didn't seem like any of the flowers ended up with broken stems. Similarly, the soil looked fine as well. I crouched next to one of the flower beds, brushed the dirt from the brick block, and pulled a piece of weed from between some of the flowers. Do you like Cosmos flowers? I do. Sachiko came to my side and began pulling out weeds herself. I gave her face a long, hard look as I continued working. She looked better compared to when she first arrived. Are you feeling better now? Sachiko nodded after a slight pause. I'm causing you trouble, aren't I? No, you can stay here, or you can stay here for as long as you want as far as I'm concerned. But what about your job? I'm on paid vacation right now. I see. Sachiko had already spent 4 days here. I doubted you could take that many paid days off. Even in the case of a death in your immediate family, you would usually only get 2 or 3 days in this country. A wave of sound spilled forth from the speakers in the inner yard, making Sachiko raise her head. After a few more moments of noise, they started playing some music. Is something happening? Sachiko looked up at the speaker in the tree with a confused expression. No, it's just music. Where is it coming from? From the broadcasting room. There are many records there, so they play some of them from time to time. What for? Just to listen. After staring at me for a short while, Sachiko noted how odd it was. "4 days had passed since Sachiko came here. I decided to go look for the medical records detailing her previous visits. She had been here on several occasions, and I was the one to examine her each of those times. I eventually treated her and sent her home in a healthy state. Every time, I knew exactly what kind of role I had to fill. This time, however, I had yet to grasp it. That said, I didn't feel particularly worried. I was a doctor at this clinic, and there was only so much I could do for her. After Sachiko returned to her room, I made my way to the library in the other wing. Her old medical records should have been there. There was a corridor connecting the east and west wings. I unlocked the large double doors leading to it. Having been neglected for so long, the door opened with an audible creak. Beyond it, there was only darkness. Though the light switch was right next to the door, flipping it did absolutely nothing. Even the oculus window located in the middle of the ceiling was completely shrouded in darkness. I propped up the door so it wouldn't close behind me, switched on my flashlight and stepped inside. The library was a relatively big circular structure. I couldn't even make out the wall on the other end of the room. The door I entered through was on the second floor, meaning there were 2 paths I could take. Both led to semicircular stairs. One was leading down, the other up. I chose the path leading down, and using the flashlight to make out my steps, I began to slowly descend. The stairs themselves were made of black iron, and had reliefs of flowers sculpted in them, or on them. Hard metallic sounds reverberated in the room with each of my steps. I finished my descent and continued to a shelf located right by the entrance. It was filled with medical records. With the help of my flashlight, I found Sachiko's old file. A cloud of dust burst up into the air as I pulled it out. I waved a hand in front of my face to get the dust away. Just in case, though, I brushed off the file with my hand before opening it. Right on the first page, I spotted some familiar-looking handwriting. It was mine. The date was already over 10 years ago. Her symptoms, treatment, and progress were all recorded in the document. It differed a little from how I currently filed my medical records, filling them with random, superfluous, observations, and a number of unrelated information, almost like it was some diary. Feeling a grip of nostalgia on my heart, I looked over the record for a while longer until I noticed the light of my flashlight growing dim. I promptly pulled out all of Sachiko's files from the shelf and returned the way I came. And that is the end of that. Now, let's see if we have another one. We do not. Okay. So, let's close out of that. We have a couple of minutes left. I can play some of the main story. So let's do it. Yes. Alright. So, you have low blood pressure, if I remember correctly. Jealous? I'm a walking energy-saving machine! Are you sure? Given the amount you eat, I'd say you have a faulty engine, if anything. And that's just how much I work! I heaved a deep sigh. Well, let's make use of all that energy then. Oh, that's so pretty! The artwork in this area is really pretty! I looked outside the umbrella-shaped lamp on this, inside the umbrella-shaped lamp on the ceiling, grasped the burnt-out light bulb within, and turned it counterclockwise a few times. It let out a creaking sound. Here you go! I pulled the light bulb out of the socket and handed it to Mayuko, who was standing by the stepladder. She took it with her left hand while handing the new light bulb with her right. Here. Thanks! I pressed the new light bulb against the socket and turned it clockwise a couple of times. After making sure that it was steadily attached, I pulled my hand out of the glass umbrella and brushed the dust coating my fingers on my thighs. Okay! Try turning on the lights now! Mayuko let go of the stepladder and flipped the switch attached to the wall next to the entrance of the room. The room lit up. I had to narrow my eyes just to look up. The night keeper's room was filled by a dazzling orange light. I hopped off the stepladder. Thank you very much. Mayuko gave me a smile. No problem. I raised my hand in response. Where to next? I folded up the stepladder and gave Mayuko a look. Next up would be... I shifted the ladder in my hand so it wouldn't hit my leg while Mayuko, standing next to me, opened the floor plan of the sanatorium. The main building was designed in the shape of a big U, with the silent inner yard surrounded by 3 walls. The road from the inner yard led to another building that housed our library. It was also attached to the main building by a connecting corridor. Mayuko's floor plan was marked with several circles. She placed the paper on an open space of a flower stand, then pulled out a red pen from her chest pocket and added another circle for the break room. Seems like only the library is left. Aye aye, let's get a move on then. We left the break room and continued down the connecting corridor to the library. The corridor itself had windows on both sides, allowing the blinding sunlight to enter unobstructed. Mayuko was looking at the floor plan as she walked ahead of me. Seems like we only have 3 places to take care of here. I can't believe they're making patients do this. You're tall and have endurance. We all appreciate your help, Miss Takako. Mayuko chuckled to herself. I shifted the folding stepladder in my arms and glanced outside. I could see a couple trees, their leaves partially shed, swaying gently in the wind. I wanted to take care of this before the nights began to grow longer. Mayuko was gazing outside the same window as me. Oh, don't sweat it. I've had nothing to do lately, so I appreciate any opportunity to have a different kind of workout. I raised the stepladder to my shoulder like I was lifting weights. Mayuko responded with a chuckle. As she opened the door leading to the library, we found ourselves enveloped by the smell of old paper and dust. The closest one is the wall lamp next to the history bookshelf. Gotcha! Alright, but this is all the time that I have for this episode, guys. I know a lot of this was the tips, and it was interesting. It really was. It showed more insight about what happened with Sachiko after Takako's death, and how long she has actually been seeing Narasaki for. Sorry, I was thinking of the new girl. But yeah, it showed just how long she has actually been seeing Narasaki, even before Takako's death. And it's really interesting, and I feel like I'm gonna cry during this playthrough. I have no doubts about it. But anyways, if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up down below. And if you haven't already subscribed, by subscribing you're becoming part of a legacy. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!